For those seeking further in-depth information concerning the Church of Christ movement founded in the early 1800s by Thomas and Alexander Campbell, Barton W. Stone, and Walter Scott, please contact Christian Answers of Austin, Texas. Free newsletters and other information on this subject are available by simply calling or emailing us. Access our online videos on Church of Christ and other Campbellite movements on Yahoo Video. Once on the Yahoo Video's homepage, put Larry Wessels in the search box and click Enter.
But what we want to talk about now is some things that came up in the debate. And I'm going to ask Bob right now about one of the things that Don Bennett brought up. He was making the argument in a segment on church history about Alexander Campbell being a Baptist. Now, he said it several times throughout the debate. Alexander Campbell was a Baptist, and then you made a point in there that he wasn't a Baptist, and then he changed the issue from, well, you're misrepresenting, I think he said something like, you're misrepresenting what I said, the tape's going to show it. Well, you know, I reviewed the tape, and the tape showed he said he was a Baptist. Now, let's go over that.
I said during the period that Alexander was caught up trying to find his way in false doctrine, he was still a Baptist, more Baptist. You know, he's still a Baptist during this period that you're talking about. Barton W. Stone had done a lot more to restoring New Testament Christianity or planting New Testament Christianity on American shores. See, on American shores. That's what they're noted for. Campbell got his act together later, and he preached and refuted many false doctrines, some that he formerly held. Now, one of these days, maybe you will come to the knowledge of truth. I'm not going to look back at you at your period now.
Alexander Campbell was never a Baptist.
I said, remember the Baptist Association.
He was never a Baptist.
And I said he was aligned to the Baptist Church.
He was never a Baptist church member. Never a Baptist church member.
Listen, I said that he was in the Baptist Association, that he was more aligned to the Baptist than he was the Church of Christ.
He was never in a Baptist church.
Would you let me?
The organization he was with, affiliated with the Redstone Baptist Association as an affiliating organization.
That's what I said.
They were never a Baptist church. And he was never a member of a Baptist church, although he had been baptized by a Baptist
Now, look,
preacher.
I'm going to say something here, okay? And what I want to say is the fact that you misrepresented what I said, because I said that Alexander Campbell, at the point you mentioned in 1811, was associated with the Baptist Association. He was not a member of the Church of Christ.
He was not a member of the Church of Christ. He was not a member of the Baptist Church, because there was no Church of Christ.
I did not say he was
There was no Church of Christ there.
Listen, you misrepresented again, and on the tape it's going to show.
Without stretching out too far here and using our time for informing the person who may be watching and doesn't know even the first hand about what we're talking about here, I'm going to have to try to stay a little bit in the context of what we have discussed. Alexander Campbell, we believe, was the man primarily responsible for the religious movement which has become known today as the Church of Christ, the Christian Church, the Disciples of Christ, the independent Christian churches, and several representations of it. And overall, there's a term used for it called the Restoration Movement or the Stone Campbell Movement. I have a book, just for instance, I brought up here, written by Leroy Garrett, and it's published by a college press up in Missouri, the College Press Publishing Company, and also it's sold by the Gospel Advocate Company out in Nashville, Tennessee. And this book, The Stone Campbell Movement. Now, generally they call it the Restoration Movement, but Leroy seen fit to call it the Stone Campbell Movement, which I think really is a better term to identify it, because when you get into Restorationism, you've got so many of these so-called restored movements that you got to say, which one are you talking about?
Is that a Church of Christ book?
Oh yeah, this is written by Leroy Garrett, a Church of Christ man, and of course he's not what we call a mainline or a hardline Church of Christer. He's been trying to reform them for many years now and hadn't had a whole lot of success with it. But it's a good history book. I've enjoyed reading the book. But at any rate, back to Mr. Bennett, he was trying to say in so many words that Alexander Campbell at one time was a Baptist, then later became a member of the Church of Christ. But he was right on neither count, actually, because Campbell, whereas he was baptized by a Baptist preacher named Luce, he never was an individual member of a Baptist congregation. He only went to this Baptist preacher to get immersion because as a Presbyterian he'd had sprinkling, infant baptism. So he came to the conclusion that he wanted to be immersed. And obviously there was no Church of Christ around at that time to go to because there were none.
That's a key issue in the whole debate, that there was no Church of Christ before this Alexander Campbell came around and started.
And so Campbell and his father and a few others there went to Matthias Luce, a Baptist preacher, and said, would you immerse us? So contrary to what was commonly done in Baptist churches at that time, which was to go to the Baptist church building, you know, and probably make a profession of faith there and then be baptized with a group of people. They went off and were baptized by this Baptist preacher, but they didn't become a member of his particular church. They had already organized their own church. Now, someone is saying, well, I thought you organized a church after baptism. Well, that's the normal way. But the Campbells had organized their Brush Run church before they had ever been baptized. Well, another conspicuous inconsistency with this is that at that point in time, the idea that baptism was necessary for salvation was unheard of. They didn't believe it, they didn't teach it, they didn't know it was in the Bible. And then this was only discovered later on in 1823 when he was studying to debate W.L. McCullough, a Presbyterian. He said while he was studying, preparing for that debate, he found out that baptism was necessary for salvation. It was for the remission of sins. Well, that's where he found it out, but then they didn't practice it till 4 years later when a man named Walter Scott baptized a man for the first time, they say, according to the apostolic pattern. But the Campbells and the others who'd been in this Brush Run church didn't get rebaptized or didn't redo it. In other words, they just went right on with what they had. So actually Campbell was never a Baptist because he never was in a Baptist church. Now, this group that they formed, the Brush Run church, they wanted the Presbyterians to accept them. The Presbyterians wouldn't do it. And then so they went to the Baptists later on, after they were immersed. They asked the Redstone Baptist Association to accept them into their association. Now, if anyone who knows what a Baptist association is knows that it's simply a loosely knit affiliation of churches. It's not a hard formulated church of some kind, like some big mass of conglomerated churches formed together. It's just kind of an affiliation, a fellowship, that they fellowship with one another. And they exchange letters with one another for members and all that. Well, at any rate, his church was accepted into the Redstone Association. Well, as the Baptists learned more and more about this man's heresies, and as he began to come up with weirder and weirder ideas, the Baptists, they said, well, we don't want to have any fellowship with this man. So they planned to have a meeting at the association in which they would publicly withdraw fellowship.
Wasn't he already thrown out of the Presbyterians before?
Oh, yeah, they had, well, his father had been censured by the
that's
Presbyterians. What it was. But at any rate, they learned that this was going to take place. And so what happened was the Brush Run Church dismissed Alexander Campbell with a few other members, and they went off and formed another church, called it the Wellsburg Church. And but that wasn't a Church of Christ. They didn't call it by the name Church of Christ, and they didn't believe at that particular time what the Churches of Christ believe in practice today. So actually we were strapped for time in that debate, but I kept wanting to ask Mr. Bennett, when did Alexander Campbell ever belong to a Church of Christ?
If you would like a free newsletter on this or other subjects, just give us a call at Christian Answers. The phone number is area code 512-218-8022. That's 512-218-8022. Or you could email us at cdebater@aol.com. That's cdebater@aol.com.